Hi everyone. So hope you all are doing fine on this Sunday evening. So we will be starting our webinar like in another couple of minutes. So we are still waiting for the participants to join in. Please bear with us for another couple of minutes so that we can once they all come in, we can start the presentation and the webinar going on. Thank you. So, hi everyone. So, you're here today with us for the Student Visa and International Education webinar. So, we are here with our Principal Migration Consultant, Mrs. Sanji Caldera, as well as myself. I'm the head of the student recruitment. Myself is Charka Dahanayaka. So, we will be hosting this whole webinar for you. So, yeah, hope you're going to enjoy the webinar. And Sanji, yeah, over to you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Charuka. As Charuka said, I'm Sanji Caldera, and Charuka is our head of the Student Visa Division. We will start by playing a short video. Hope you enjoy it. And soon after, I will come in to have a chat.
Right. All right. Seems like we have experienced a technical issue and there was no sound in the video. That's what that's a confirmation that we've got from the panelists. Should we play the video again, Sanji, or should we just?
No, we'll start. Yes.
Yeah, no
The picture said it all.
Oh, good. So let me go back to, we have prepared a presentation for you all today. So we will be starting off with that.
Once again, good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining on this Sunday evening. And how we are going to run this webinar there'll be a lot of concentration basically on Australian education system. However, our practice would also be assisting students with if they were going for the UK for studies or for Canada or any other country. But today we will concentrate in about Australia, but you would be welcome to get in touch with us after the webinar if you were interested in studying in any other countries. Right, so it'll be a fairly short presentation which will be shared and presented both by myself and Charuka. And once at the end of the presentation, we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. Right, so without ado, let's see why we want to study specifically in Australia. Right, and we start off by that it's a high quality education that we have world class, and we have a wide range of education courses and institutions. The cultural diversity and a welcoming environment, as in Australia, it is a melting pot, we call it. We have all students from all over the world, and you will always be very comfortable meeting people, meeting the students coming from your background, coming from your countries, and there are social events and so forth. So you'll never feel homesick as such. And working opportunities at the moment, you have 24 hours a week that you could work, and there are plenty of opportunities. In fact, Australia is going through a lot of skill shortages, so finding work would be not an issue at all. And quality of life, which I don't want to talk about. I'm sure you do your own research on it, and also having research opportunities for, especially at the PhD level. There are many opportunities universities will grant with and without scholarships, and also with financial support. In the universities and in the education institutions, there is an extensive student support service, and living in Australia, you would have a safe living and study options available, and so there are many students who would be coming to study in Australia. Now, moving on, what we would have is we will touch on the eligibility and requirements. This is where Charuka will come in and run through very briefly the eligibility requirements, and obviously from each of the students, it'll be a different sort of scenario. But later on, I will talk about why we are so special and why should you engage our services for your studies and your career developments. Over to you, Charuka.
Yeah, thank you, Sanji. So yeah, first of all, we'll discuss about how the eligibility and the requirement works, like when it comes to a student visa, because when it comes to students, you know that students, like different students will be applying for different courses and like different universities. So the first stage of like getting into this whole student visa process is basically checking your eligibility. So as migration consultants or student consultants, that's the main thing that we do when a student comes for us looking for educational consultancy. So the first thing would be checking their eligibility. So moving forward, when it comes to the eligibility and the requirements to apply for student visa, basically there are like different areas that we will sort of consider. So one of the main thing is their age requirement, because the Department of Home Affairs, they have given us a certain criteria when it comes to student visas. When they apply for certain studies, we have to make sure that the student is in the right age to apply for a particular program. So that's number one. So meeting the right age requirement, like for an example, if you're planning to do a diploma or a certificate program in Australia, we don't recommend a person who is like above 30 or so, like applying for a diploma in Australia due to certain GT requirements and all that. So when it comes to certificates, diplomas, we always prefer or encourage students to apply when they before they turn 25. Also, like for bachelor's, if they can apply within the 25 years of age, then that's most sort of preferred when it comes to their visa applications. And when the case officers are assessing their visa applications, they will be more sort of suitable candidates, I would say, right? And when it comes to masters, of course, we advise students, if you can apply for your masters in Australia before you turn 35. So during that age limit, you can get a successful outcome when it comes to your student visa. So that's number one, meeting the right age requirement. Moving on to the second one, be enrolled in a course or study and provide evidence. So that means you need to choose a proper provider, proper educational provider in Australia, as well as you need to be holding a valid COE for your studies. So that's number two. So without holding a valid COE, you cannot apply for a Australian student visa, because you have to sort of go through the in the upcoming slides, we will be explaining you how you can go up to the part of getting a student visa, choosing your educational provider. So in here, basically, it is a requirement, because you have to select a proper provider. That's number one. And then you have to validate a proper COE or a valid COE. And meeting the English language requirement. For certain studies, there will be a particular or specific English requirement, such as let's say for an example, if you're applying for certificates or diplomas, you have to have an overall of 5.5 IELTS or PDE. And also, if you're planning to apply for a bachelor's in Australia, you need to have overall 6 individual bands, not less than 5.5. And for masters, overall 6.5 and individual bands, not less than 6. So these are general or the standard requirements, but different universities might have different requirements when it comes to enrolling in their particular courses. Have adequate health insurance. You and your family members must be covered with a valid insurance. That is a must, and it's a mandatory requirement when you're applying for a student visa in Australia. So we call it for students, we call the insurance overseas student health cover. So that is the health insurance. You have to be covered, you and your family members. And so as I said, this is a mandatory requirement. Have enough money for your funds. So in the upcoming slides, we will be explaining you on the fund part, how we can organize the funds, who can sponsor us and everything. But meeting that minimum fund requirement, it is a must when it comes to student visas. Be a genuine temporary entrant. We call this the GT criteria. So I will be explaining you about it in a more detailed manner in the next couple of slides. And so in order to secure your student visa, you have to meet this genuine temporary entrant criterion. And meeting the health requirement, as you all know, once you lodge your student visa with the Home Affairs, they will be asking you or requesting you to go through a medical test. So you have to meet the right health requirement to secure your student visa in Australia. And last but not least, the immigration history, definitely that puts a good weight on your application. If you have a good immigration history without any visa refusals also, so that kind of applicants will be preferred by the Australian government. And moving forward, Yeah, so when it comes to the courses that we can apply or the student visa routes for Australia, there are different areas that students or potential students can apply. So starting from secondary school exchange programs, so that means like if you are below 18, you can like apply to study in a school or high school in Australia, and one of your parents can accompany you, since the applicant will be a minor at that time. So they can actually apply for these secondary school exchange programs. And vocational education and training, vet courses, we call them vet courses. These are certificate and diploma programs. And ELI course, English language courses. If you don't meet the minimum requirement of English, requested by that particular education provider or the home affairs, you will have to go through this ELI course, this particular ELI course program before you start the principal course or your course, so that you can meet the English requirement by completing this particular course for either 10 weeks or basically it depends on your current English requirement, and the educational provider will recommend you have to go through this ELI course program for a certain period of time. And foundation level programs, let's say if someone, if we are specifying about Sri Lankan students, let's say if someone hasn't done their A-levels, of course you can do one of these foundation programs in Australia or else in Sri Lanka. But since we are talking student visa pathways to Australia, so you definitely can do your foundation program here before enrolling for a bachelor's program. So, and as well as top-up degrees, if you have studied in a local education provider in Sri Lanka or in your home country, you can complete certain time period in your degree. Let's say you complete 2 years or you complete 1 year, then you can apply for credits with an education provider in Australia, and you can come to Australia to study your bachelor's degree. And then again, the bachelor programs. So you can directly apply for your bachelor's after you complete your A-levels by meeting the minimum A-level requirements. You can apply for the bachelor level courses. And then pre-masters, we call this postgraduate certificates, postgraduate diplomas, associate degrees. So you can definitely apply for these ones as well if you have completed a bachelor's in your home country. And master's degrees in Australia. So if you have completed your bachelor's in Sri Lanka or in your home country, then the next stage would be applying for a master's in Australia. And the postgraduate research in higher education, we call them PhDs. So definitely that is also a pathway for you to come and study in Australia if you have completed your tertiary education in your home country. So moving forward. Right. So now we are discussing about the student visa process. This is one of the main things which we like to discuss today, because when it comes to coming to study in a different country, we are not aware about how it works, how the application process works. So students will be sort of confused. Okay, what kind of documents are involved? How are we gonna do this? How much do we have to show? So we will be going through step by step to explain you how the student visa process works. So every one of you who are planning to come to Australia or a different country for your higher education, this will be the basic process or the standard process. But in different countries, there could be certain specific differentiations when it comes to the process. So the step one, as I said, before I get into the step one in the flow chart in here, the initial stage would be, as I told you, checking a student's or an applicant's eligibility to apply for a study in Australia. So for that, we normally say either you have to you have to meet the A-level study requirement, or else you have to, if you haven't done A-levels, then you can start from a foundation. So basically, once you come to us or come to us, we will be checking your eligibility to apply for a study in Australia. So that's number one. If you meet that eligibility criteria, then the second stage would be, we will be requesting for some like initial documents from the applicant, and then we will be sending those documents to the university, to their preferred university. So as an educational consultant, we will be always recommending students on on the universities and what are their like eligible programs and everything. We will be guiding them throughout the process, starting from this step one until they lodge their visas. So the first one is applying for an offer letter. So for this, first thing we have to know, we have to decide on an educational provider, and we have to decide where you actually going to study. Is it going to be in Victoria? Is it going to be in New South Wales, or else in a different state? So you can if once we finalize on these two things, we can start the documentation process. So initially we will be requesting for certain documents, such as your identification documents, your academic documents. If you are married, your marriage certificate, your dependents details, your English requirements. So once we get all these initial documents sorted, we will be sending them to your preferred educational provider to get an offer letter. So the first offer letter that we will be receiving, we normally call it the conditional offer letter. Why it's conditional? It's basically because, let's say if you haven't done English in this first stage, then we can always request the universities to provide us a conditional offer letter, so that you can complete your English by the time you get a conditional offer letter. And in the second stage, you can provide your English along with your financials. So normally the second condition is always your financials, because basically that is step 2. And by the time we get our conditional offer letter, then going forward, we can provide our financial documents. That's number 2. So coming to the step 2 in the process, submitting financial documents to the university. So when it comes to the financial documents, there are basically I will discuss about this in a more detailed way in our next couple of slides. So when it comes to the financial, there are 2 categories. One we call show money, and the other one is pay money. And also we can we can be sponsored by our blood relatives. So we'll be explain everything in detail in the next slide. So going forward to the ones we provide or submit our financial documents to the university, they will be taking us through this GTE process. We call it the GTE process, the genuine entrant criteria process. So they will be checking our financials, whether we are meeting the initial fund requirement. And if we satisfy the financial requirement, then we will get a document called an unconditional offer letter, which means the university has accepted or released us from all the conditions, and we are ready for the payment. So that's the point where we make the initial payment to the university. So we have to make different universities, of course, they have a different process, but the standard is normally we pay for the first 6 months, which we call a semester. So we pay for the first semester, and once we make the payment, they will issue us a document called the ECOE. We call it the Electronic Confirmation of Enrollment. So that's basically means you are ready to apply for your visa. So with that, without that particular document, we can't start your visa process. Once we secure the ECOE, of course, we can start the visa process, which means applying for your visa. So we will be gathering all these documents. We will be going through all these documents, checking, and once we come to the visa process, and then we will be finalizing your visa lodgement. So once you lodge your visa, of course, the maximum processing time would be 3 months, but this can always change depending on the backlogs and everything that the department is having. So basically that's an overall idea about the student visa process, how it works and everything. So going forward to the next slide, right? So the financial requirement, basically, as I told you in the previous slide, financial requirements. When it comes to the financial requirements, there are two different categories. We call it, one is show money and the other one is pay money. So when it comes to the show money part, some people, when we when we explain the student about this whole financial requirements and everything, they get scared. Okay, like, do we have to spend this much? Do I have to pay this much upfront, like to the universities? So it's not the case, because when it comes to show money, it is just to show that you have, or you meet the minimum fund requirement and you have sufficient funds in funds with you to meet your tuition fees or to cover your living expenses, etc. So that's like about the show money part. So normally when it comes to the show money part, it got like 3 different items: first year tuition fee, first year living cost, and the airfare amount. So when it comes to the first year tuition fee, of course, depending on the university or your education provider or the program that you're like going ahead with, this amount can actually change. But when it comes to the first year living cost, it's a standard that we are using. So for a student, we will be saying 21,041 Australian dollars. And for a spouse and kid, the amounts could change. So we have like given you in detail like what are the exact figures there. And normally for the airfare, we are like taking it as 2,000 Australian dollars, or we have like included as $2,200 with this whole like increase in the dollar rate and everything. So as much as you can show your like the funds that you show, it is always good for your application, because that shows the department that you have a sound financial background. So that's like one of the major things when it comes to like getting a positive outcome for your student visa. Because if you can't meet this fund requirement, or if you can't like pay your tuition fees, or if you can't cover your living cost and other expenses, then that means you don't really meet the eligibility to apply for a student visa in Australia. So that's the main thing why we always have to have a proper and a sound financial background before we lodge our visa application. So that's about the show money fund. And there's another small element when it comes to the show money part, because if you see in here, we are just showing our expenses or the funds for the first year. So first year tuition fee, first year living cost, and the airfare. So basically, let's say if you are going for a program, like let's say if you are applying for a bachelor's. So normally a bachelor's would be 3 years, but in here we are just showing the funds required for the first year. In that scenario, the department will ask, okay, right, you have shown enough funds for the first year. What are we going to do for the rest of the years? How are you going to cover your tuition fee, or how are you going to cover your living costs? For that, we are showing an income, and we call it an ongoing income, ongoing monthly income of $2,000 per applicant. So that is something that we have to definitely show to the department, since we are only showing funds enough for the first year. So basically, like once when people like come to us, when students come and meet us, we always like give them ideas. Because different background with different backgrounds, they will be having different income sources. So we will be like, when they are having a consultation from us, we will be explaining them, okay, under your income component, we can use these income resources. So so that like we can always assist them to figure out what are the incomes that they can actually get or take to show their monthly ongoing income. So when it comes to monthly ongoing income, I'll just give you a couple of like examples. If your sponsors are working, of course, you can take their employment income, which is a salary. If you have any properties, if your if your sponsors got any properties, then you can use the rental income of those months. If your sponsors got fixed deposits, the income, the interest of that. And also there are like different, if you're having a business, you can take that take the income coming from that income being generated through that business. So all these components, we can take it into consideration when we are showing our monthly ongoing income. So that's about the show money part. So in order to show these funds, or in order to show the department that we have sufficient funds to like complete our studies in Australia, we can use sponsors. So we can use up to 3 sponsors. The applicant itself, they don't really have to show funds under their name. So they can use up to 3 sponsors to show these funds on behalf of the applicant. But the sponsors definitely have to be blood relative. So when it comes to blood relatives, we can use our grandparents, parents, and our siblings, or the applicant siblings, or else the uncles and aunts, or else in another way, the parents' siblings of the parents. So these people can actually sponsor you for your student visa. They can show funds on behalf of you. And so that's about the show money part. When it comes to pay money, that this is going to be our actual cost, because this is the amount that we have to actually pay to the university. So that includes first year semester fee. And also, as I told you, everyone has to, the applicant and their dependents, if there are any, they have to be covered with the proper health insurance. So for the health insurance, we have to pay upfront. Let's say if you are planning to study in Australia for 3 years, then you have to pay your insurance upfront for 3 years. So that is a one-off payment that you have to make, and the first semester fee. So this going to be your pay money part. So normally, depending on the university or the education provider, this amount can differ. And so that is like basically about we call this the GD process, or the fund requirements. So that is basically about it. So do you have anything to add, Sanji, to that?
Thank you, Charka. Now you have covered quite a bit, and I would like you to the participants to again get a good understanding of what Charuka mentioned about show money and pay money. The show money being what you need to do, what you need to show, and saying that you could sustain yourself, you could pay for your fees and so forth, that this is available and that is a requirement for the visa. But when it comes to actually the cost that you incur for of course, Shahrukh has here mentioned the pay money being the first semester and the overseas student health cover. And of course, not forgetting that when you start living here, that you would incur costs. Now, that cost will differ from student to student. The students who live with their friends and family would have a very low amount of cost. It depends on the support that the student is getting from their relatives or friends. And there are students who come and from day number 1, they will stay independently. And of course, I will down the track talk about other employment opportunities. Over to you, Charka.
Thank you, Sanji. So yeah, that's about the financial part. And moving forward, right, the work entitlements. So normally students ask us, okay, if I go to study in Australia, will I get any work rights? Can I work? How many hours can I work? So as everyone, I'm pretty sure that you all are aware, like, you know, when it comes to Australia, they have restricted hours when it for students who are coming to study here, because they have to, like, their main intention always has to be they're 100% focused on their studies. So because of that, the department has always restricted the work entitlement of students. But yeah, during the COVID time, of course, like due to like employee shortages and different reasons, The government actually released these like work restrictions a bit, and they gave non-limited work hours for the students. So before COVID, like it was 20 hours per week. And as I said, these restrictions were eased during the pandemic, but these like the hours going to be capped again after 1st of July. But they have increased it a little bit up to 24 hours, because earlier it was 20 hours per week. So that means like 48 hours per fortnight you can work. So still, like with this whole like work hours getting capped and all that, still the government has eased a bit for the students who are working in the aged care, because they can work unlimited until the end of this year. Probably, like we don't know when these rules gonna change, or like after 1st of July there will be like different changes coming in. So we will be like discussing about any of that, like, if there are any changes to the work entitlements of students, and like we will be updating those ones in our socials. So so this is like one of the main questions that students ask from us, like when I'm on my break or when I'm on my holidays, can I like work? Like, do I still have to like, stay within the limited work hours? No, that's not the scenario, because when your course is not in session, you can always work unlimited or you can work full time. But you need to get a letter from your educational provider saying that like, you're on a vacation or you're on a break, so you can work unlimited during those times. So moving forward, right, so what are the courses in high demand? I'll quickly run through the main like programs or the courses in high demand. So Sanji, and then I will pass it over to Sanji so he can explain better like how from the migration perspective, how it's gonna sort of be suitable for the students studying in Australia. So mainly, if we look at the courses like that are in high demand, I would say nursing and health related studies as number one, because during the past like couple of years, we have seen like students who've been studying this health related courses. It's easy for them to like find job opportunities, and there will be heaps of other opportunities for them in Australia once they complete their studies. And because of that, there's a huge like probability of students like moving towards these nursing or health related programs such as physiotherapy, and there are like so many other like health related programs. And also studies in early childhood, primary or secondary teaching. So these are also like main programs, because mainly when it comes to Australia, it's more sort of about health and education. So they always give a priority to these two like sectors. So because of that, they always make sure that the students who study or who complete their studies in these particular like areas are like, they have like good opportunities upon the completion of their studies. And also there's a new I will say that it's more sort of the social work and community work. That is something that was like popular during the last couple of years among students, because during the COVID time, there were like people who wanted these social workers and community work because there was a necessity for it. So basically, students who have like come to Australia, or students who are planning to come to Australia, I would say social work and community work is also a good pathway for them to consider if they meet, if their profiles meet with this relevant studies. And other than that, quantity surveying, construction management, project management, these are also like more sort of into engineering sites. These are also highly sought after in Australia. And if we take some other programs, information technology, and again, engineering, hospitality and commercial cookery, also other trade courses such as automotive, plumbing, painting, and there are heaps of other like trade courses as well, which will sort of like give you good career paths in when it comes to like their studies. So yeah, anything to add to that, Sanjay?
Yes, I'm going to talk two areas at the moment. The first area that about studies, and later on at the end, what is the role of Sanji Caldera Associates in relation to assisting students. Now, this is a bit of experience that I want to share with you. Why study in Australia? You're looking at two people. That's myself. Almost many years ago, I came here to study and carved a pathway for permanent residency. In more recent times, you're looking at our main presenter, Charuka, who also came and studied, and she's now working, concentrating on the education area and advising other young people like herself in the past who wanted to study in Australia. So there are got two people who are presenting who came through the same process. One of the things that I want to really advise our participants is that when you do come to study, you must concentrate on the studies, though you will have very attractive employment opportunities presenting yourself. This is where a lot of students go wrong. Those attractive employment opportunities will be always available. But what is the time that you are studying? You need to restrict your working hours, and that is why the 24 hours per week restriction has been enforced. The importance of you having time to do your workshops and joint presentations and so forth, and where you concentrate on the studies. I have seen certain students very sadly taking opportunities, employment opportunities, and fast tracking that at the expense of studies. And this has come at a big cost when they don't have finished their studies, the department canceling their visas because they're not studying and so forth. What I can say is you finish your studies, plenty of time to work and to look at pathways for your permanent residency should you want to. Otherwise, there'll be some people who want to go back taking this education. So please do take this advice, and I will also talk to you later on what is the role that we play with the student at the beginning and to the end. Charuka did mention about some very high demand courses. That those high, just because you see those high demand courses, you're not forced to go and only study them. You must study something that you like to study, what you did in the past, the some of the work experience that and the secondary school studies that you have done, and link it up and study those courses. Because what I can tell you one thing, that Australia always recognize skilled, educated candidates when they apply for a job. If you don't finish your studies, then there are less opportunities. But I can say that in any field, there are opportunities. Here we are talking about high demand. So yeah, I trust that you will take my advice that when you choose a study course, and I will talk to you later about our role in assisting you to, we won't say, look, these are the ones you should study, but how we work with your ambitions of your in life and so forth. I'll talk a bit later. Over to you, Sharka.
Thank you, Sanjay. Right. Okay, this is one of the main like topics we wanted to discuss today, because we like when we are like on our day-to-day life, we deal with a lot of like students who come to us asking whether like asking about um like that they have got a visa refusal in their like in their previous applications, and like whether it's a problem, whether it can actually stop them from going for their studies in a different country. So different like different questions we are getting every single day when it comes to these visa refusals. So basically when it comes to visa refusals, so we should know how we can, because getting a visa refusal or else getting your visa application rejected from a country like Australia is always a not a good thing. But it does not mean that like if you have received a visa refusal, that does not mean that you can't like try again to study in the same country or in a different country. Because the main thing is that like without getting a visa refusal, we always have to be like really cautious how to not get a visa refusal for your like application. So there are like different areas that we're gonna discuss in the next slide about like how to not get a visa refusal or how we can mitigate the risk of getting a visa refusal. So mainly talking about the reasons for a visa refusal and how we can actually mitigate the risk of getting a visa refusal is basically, as I told you, like a student have to meet the GTE criteria. This is the number one reason where they have to where like a lot of people get visa refusals based on this particular reason. So because they don't meet the GTE or the genuine temporary entrant criteria. So when it comes to genuine temporary entrant criteria, there are like different reasons that falls under this particular category, because this is the major one. Like not you don't meet the GTE. The case obviously in the refusal would say you haven't met the genuine temporary entrant criteria. So I don't think that you are a genuine temporary entrant to come and study in Australia. So basically how we can mitigate the risk of like getting a refusal for not meeting the GTE. So as I told you, number one, it has to be like the age has to be met, like the right age, and also the funding. The fund requirement definitely has to be met, because without sufficient funds, that means you're not like you're not meeting the GTE entrant criteria or genuine temporary entrant criteria. So you have to make sure that you have enough or sufficient funds to apply for a student visa in Australia. Apart from that, your studies. So a student, like your whatever the program that you're planning to apply in Australia or study in Australia, it has to be in line with your previous education. So otherwise, like when let's say like for an example, if you have studied business management, suddenly you can't like change your plan and come and study nursing in here, because then the department would think, right, you're trying to like you have an ulterior motive uh, of like applying for a program that is highly in demand, and you're not like trying to be a genuine temporary entrant. Because student visa, it's a temporary visa that's been given by the department. So students really have to be genuine students. They have to like the main focus should be their studies. So as I mentioned, so your studies or your previous education has to be in line with whatever the program that you are planning to study in Australia. So if you don't like meet this particular like study requirement, then that means you will eventually, or there's a high probability that you will end up getting a visa refusal. And apart from that, definitely your immigration history. If you have like have a good immigration history, that means like if you have maintained a good immigration history, then that means you are sort of a responsible or a person who has actually who know the purpose of your visa. So that is also sort of like puts a good weight on your visa if you have a good immigration history. So basically, when it comes to not meeting the genuine temporary entrant criteria, there can be like different reasons other than this. But if we sort of focus on the main reason, these are the main reasons why a student can get a visa refusal based on the genuine temporary entrant criteria, or based on not meeting the genuine temporary entrant criteria. And coming to the other, like other reasons that will sort of like lead you to a visa refusal: lack of supporting documents. So when it comes to applying for a visa, or applying, like when we start the process as consultants, we always request a lot of documents. We know that sometimes it can be really like annoying or troubling for the student or the sponsors when we request for a lot of like documents from them. But our main like purpose is to get their visa a success, like, or getting 100% visa success is our main intention. That's the main reason why we always ask for a lot of supporting documents, because as much as we provide the right or the right documents to meet like certain requirements, that means it's easy for the department or the case officers as well when they are assessing the documents. So if you don't provide the right documents or the right, like, the supporting documents, that means it sort of can lead up to a visa refusal as well. And the last one, fraudulent documents, or we call them fraud documents. A lot of people think, right, if we can like do some forged documents, and like if we send them to the department, then they might not really like catch us up. But like that's not the story, because the department have a different way of assessing and verifying all the documents. So like providing fraud documents, it's really not a good idea, because it can definitely lead to a visa refusal. And when your visa is refused on the basis of submitting fraud documents, that's not like other visa refusals, which they can't like meet the genuine temporary entrant, or when they can't like meet the financial requirement. So basically, that's another like major reason for people to get a visa refusal. So probably like once they get a visa refusal, a lot of people come and ask us, okay, what's the next step, what we can do? So if you have applied as an offshore applicant, of course you don't have any appeal rights, or you can't reapply because they don't have like any appealing rights, unlike the students who are onshore, or the applicants on onshore, because they can apply through AAT. We call it the tribunal. So they always can go through the tribunal and fight for their outcome, but not for the offshore students. So Sanji, would you like to add a little bit about the tribunal process, how they can fight for their outcomes if they get a visa refusal while they're onshore?
Yes, quite rightly. When you apply for a student visa for the first time offshore, unfortunately, you do not have any review rights. The decision of the department to refuse your visa, of course, giving proper reasons for it, cannot be challenged any further. If you can look at that decision, find out whether there has been any shortfalls in your application, and if those shortfalls can be covered going forward, then there is nothing to stop you from applying again. The department will not have a black mark because one application got refused, because of course it was never about fraudulent documents. If you're given fraudulent documents, you can't apply again for another 3 years. But if there was not enough information and so forth, or they were not satisfied, they'll give the reasons, we can address the reason, reapply again. However, there are students, then you'll wonder why students have to apply onshore. Why they will not to apply onshore is for any reason. If they could not continue their studies, or if they had missed out a few subjects and they want an extension of time on their visa to complete their studies, then you apply onshore. And there are times that they could refuse the visa. Specifically, if you have been failing a lot of exams and not attending classes and so forth, they could refuse your visa or perhaps even cancel your visa. At that time, you have your say in more detail. I mean, the department will give you opportunities before they cancel your visa, but they may not give you opportunities before they refuse an extension. So there are two different things: canceling the visa and refusing a new visa. You could take it to the tribunal, and tribunal is what we call it an independent body. Generally, the tribunal members, like our retired magistrates and judges, they take a more overall view and give you all the opportunities to present your case, why that the department's decision is unreasonable. Let's take, for example, that you were going through a lot of studies, there was a family death, you were going through some depression and so forth, and you failed a few exams, and therefore you wanted an extension of your visa. You went to apply for a visa and they refused it. So that situation like that, the tribunal will be very considerate, so long as at the time that you have applied for the tribunal and from the time that they will look at it, it can take some time, that you also fulfill their your study requirements. They will look into that. So yes, definitely you have review rights. As Charukha mentioned, the three main reasons for offshore applicants were the GT, I think she's explained, I don't have to add anything. Lack of supporting documents, I don't have to add anything, but I'll talk a little bit about fraudulent documents. If Australia has a very, very excellent way of checking this information, and it's just a matter of time before they find that this document is fraudulent. Very interestingly, even if you get through some fraudulent documents and go and study, one day it can catch up with you, and that's going to be quite catastrophic, because you might even finish your studies, you might be on a temporary visa, you may have got permanent resident visa. Still, they could come back and say that you gave fraudulent documents, you presented, so your initial visa was to be refused, even though that visa is no more, but they could cancel your current permanent residency. One has to be very, very careful, and we will never encourage ever our relationship managers to give fraudulent documents. Over to you, Charukha.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sanji. Right, so moving forward, yeah, so the opportunities after completing your studies in Australia. So the main opportunity that you would get once you complete your studies in Australia is the opportunity for you to apply for the 485. We call this the temporary graduate visa. So if you have studied in Australia for 2 years or more, you will be eligible to apply for this 482 or the temporary graduate visa. So under that, there are two different categories. One is post-study work visa and the other one is graduate stream visa. So post-study work visa is basically for the students who have completed their bachelor's and the master's, and graduate stream, we call this the job ready program as well. So it is like for the students who have completed trade courses or like studies less than 2 years in Australia. So basically this is like the main opportunity that a student who is coming to Australia will get, because when they apply for this temporary graduate visa, they will have full work rights, so they can earn some like good work experience while they're in Australia on this particular visa category. So moving on. So post-study work rights for selected degrees in the areas of verified skill shortages will be increased from 1st of July. So this is like basically because earlier they were like different durations, but now from 1st of July, For the students who are studying bachelor degrees, it has gone from 2 years to 4 years. And for the students who are studying master's degrees or have completed master's degrees, it will go from 3 years to 5 years. And for the PhD holders, it will be 6 years altogether. So basically, like, when you get let's say, like, for an example, when you get like 4 years or more to get some good work or solid work experience overseas, it will always complement in your resume with your qualifications, because you have like done an international qualification. Along with that, you have some good like work experience in the same industry, which will always complement you when you're like finding your next job opportunity, or else when you're looking for some other like options in Australia. So this is most of the students, they are not aware that like they will get a work visa like this upon the completion of their studies. So we always recommend for the students, like, always select a program that is 2 years or more, so that they can secure this particular 485 or the temporary graduate visa opportunity as well. Because there are certain times when students come here to do only like maybe their final year, or like they apply for credits when they come here. So when such scenarios happens, of course, like, it is difficult for them to apply for this particular 485 visa, since they have not completed these 2 years of study. So this is a very good opportunity for the students, even like potential students who are planning to come and study in Australia, because that means altogether you can like secure up to, I would say, like 5 to 6 years visa in Australia, so that they can complete their studies and also gain some good work experience. So moving forward, yeah, and again, for the students who are already holding a 485 visa or a temporary residency visa, so for them, they will be like after 1st of July, they will be eligible for a 2-year extension, because the government has actually suggested these changes to come in effect after 1st of July. But there could be like different changes, as I mentioned earlier. After 1st of July, we will be like keeping you update on those ones as well going forward. Yeah, so as I said, so the people who are holding a TR or the 485 visa currently in medical, health, nursing sectors or teaching sectors, IT and engineering sectors, agriculture and environment sector, biotechnology science sectors, they will be eligible for another extension for additional 2 years. Right. Okay, so coming to like the last slide of our presentation for the day. Why choose us as your educational provider? So this is basically what actually differs us from other migration consultants. So because as a migration consultant, we have been like practicing in this industry for 17 plus years. So that's like, that comes with a lot of like experience, expertise and everything. So when we like meet up a student, or when we meet up a potential candidate for a visa in Australia, we always like check their eligibility, and we know like what kind of options are available for them. We know how to advise them in the right way, so that they don't, like, as I said, like they don't get a visa refusal or anything as such. So we provide that right guidance, because like with that experience and the expertise, we are sort of like in a capable place where we can, of course, guide the students or the other like potential applicants to their like ultimate goal. And comprehensive assistance from choosing a suitable course to obtaining the conditional offer and lodging the visa. So as I mentioned earlier, starting from selecting your educational provider or your program, we will be there like from beginning till until the very end, when you lodge your visas and when you get your outcome. Not only that, like even after you come here, we have like in Australia, we have a couple of offices in Melbourne and New South Wales. So we will be assisting ongoing advices for our students who are coming to Australia for their studies. So, and at the same time, free eligibility check, we really don't charge anything called professional fees or handling fees or documentation fee. The process itself, starting from the beginning till the very end, it will be free of charge. You only have to like make the payments for the university and the department for the visa fee that you have to when you have to lodge the visa. So these are the only like costs involved in the process. So the entire process will be free of 100%, no free of charge. And yeah, so exclusive discounts when registering through us for IELTS exams. So we have like partnered up with different like main leading providers in Australia as well as in Sri Lanka. So if you want to, like, if you seek our assistance to register yourself for IELTS or PT, we can always, as your educational consultant, we can always assist you with that. And we have a top, like huge range of top colleges and universities. So if you tell us, okay, this is my preferred university, this is where I want to get enrolled at. So we will be always there to assist you with your request, and we will be providing you the best and the top colleges and and universities in Australia. And exclusive scholarship. So if you have like an exceptional academical background or a profile, we can always talk to our educational providers and we can like organize scholarships and everything for you. So that is basically depending on certain areas, like as well as your A-level results, or as if you have done like other professional qualifications which you have done exceptionally well, then we can organize this kind of scholarships after certain discussions with the education provider. And visa assistance for accompanying parents, spouse, and kids. As I told you, it's not just the main applicant that we are like assisting or giving the migration advices. Basically, it's for your entire family, starting from yourself, your or you could be your partner or could be your children. So we will be giving customized solutions for each and every one of you, so that like you can, you know that you are applying for the exact like the right pathway. And yeah, post-study student visa assistance, pathways leading up to work visas, permanent residency, and citizenships. So that is basically not part of the student visa, but like part of the memo sort of into migration. But since we are a migration consultant, we are experts in that area. So we will be giving you the right advices and the right guidance when it comes to securing other opportunities. And also, as I said, starting from the consultation itself, the initial consultation, we will be providing you the proper guidance throughout your career, what you have to study, like what sort of an educational provider you should be selecting. If you so we will be like providing all this kind of career guidance, so that you are not just taking a wrong decision and you normally like you select the right course for your studies. So anything to add there, Sanjay?
Yes, Charga, thanks. I want to go back a few steps where Charuka mentioned that that after your studies, that what we call the 485, known as the post-work visa, that is where there we go. Now, this particular visa is given for you to put into practical use what you have studied. And if you aspire to become a permanent resident, give you time to get the relevant work experience and so forth. Now, one of the interesting things is that I think I'll be failing my duties if I don't sort of very basically touch on opportunities that are available for students. Now, just before that, this number of years also depend on where you study. There'll be some areas that that when you do study in certain states and certain districts, you will get additional number of years too. So not forgetting that. So this can further increase. One of the very interesting things that this post-work stream visa does give you, as I said, opportunities for you to start working in your areas that you studied, and also have looking with, there are two pathways. One, if you were to look at permanent residence, and that's one we call the point system and so forth. But when you're working in Australia, the trend now is that your employer always will say, what can we do to, for you to build up your life in Australia? And they have plenty of opportunities to sponsor you, depending on the number of years of work experience that you have. So this particular, the 485, the post-study work stream visas are very, very important. And this is where we come in about advising you what you should be doing. Charuka, going back to the slide, that why choose us as opposed to now the people who are looking at student visa options would go to student education providers, the student visa advisors. They may not be migration agents, so they will only advise you to a course of study. But I think there is a added benefit by coming to us, where we will look at your past studies. We'll try to talk to you on what you would like to study, where would you like to study, and sort of guide you in some of the opportunities that will unfold for you in Australia. So that is the difference. And one other thing is, once, as Charuka quite rightly mentioned, every single student who does come here, our clients who start studying, I always have encouraged our relationship managers to arrange a time to have a chat with them to get to know, because they would be dealing with our relationship managers, and this is an opportunity to have a chat with me, for me to part with the 17 years of experience in the field and so forth. And we give a lot of guidance. I mean, it's not about only migration when they do come, where do you go? Do you get a driver's license? How to get a tax file number? What you should be, the bank account that you should open, and a lot of advice. It's an ongoing thing, and the relationship is very nice in the sense they after some time they talk to us about sometimes changing education providers and going for another course. Charuka would be there to assist and say, okay, fine, there are some rules and regulations before you change your courses for that. And then when they come to the post-work stream, this is where I really give a lot of advice when they take on these years, and to talk to them about the importance of the 485, how they should use it in order to aspire, should they want to apply for permanent residency. So that is where the career guidance will come in. But we'll never, one thing that you will see is, we'll never tell them study accountancy, you study engineering. We will never do that. We will work with the background of those the students who have studied their advanced level, and perhaps maybe sometimes certain people may have done a bachelor's degree before they embark on a master's or a PhD, how it can link up, what sort of opportunities that awaits them once they finish, and how they go about. And many of the students who have come with us in years have got their 485s, have got their permanent residence, maybe through employer sponsorships, and one day they have sort of come back to us to get their partners, and later on their parents, and finally their citizenship. So it's been a journey of they become not only clients, they become friends of our organization. So rest assured, I would like you to always visit our website and see the unlimited number of testimonials that we have got. one also important thing is about a dedicated relationship manager. Now, that dedicated relationship manager also has a structure where they will be reporting to Charuka, who is the head of our student visa section. And if there are even things that they can't solve, they will bring it up to the senior management to talk about. So there is a lot of assistance and help by choosing us as your preferred advisor going forward with your education. Over to Charka, and you have now plenty of time and opportunities for questions going forward.
Yes, Sanji, thank you. So yeah, moving forward. Yeah, so that's the end of our presentation. Hope it was like informative and also you enjoyed it. So yeah, now I think it's time for us to go for the questions and answers. If you have like any questions regarding like if you are a student who has already like lodged your visa or you are in the middle of your process, feel free to like type us your questions in the small like question box there, so we can like answer those questions. And yeah, we have already received a couple of questions. Let me go through those ones and start answering them for you.
Charuk, I want to add to it. So our presentations, slides will close now. We have many viewers on Facebook, and we have, in addition to Charuka and myself, there is a panel of relationship managers who would be answering those questions. So at the moment, Charuka will now end the presentation so that slides and move on to the questions and answers.
Right. Okay, the first question that we have received: what are the chances of getting PR if I select a university from a regional area in Australia? Right. Sanji, would you like to answer, or you want me to answer this question?
All right, I will. It's a difficult question to answer what happens in a few years' time. So we might be able to answer that question should you have finished your studies. So if you're going to start your study program today and you finish in 2 to 3 years' time, then we may not know specifically the answer to the question. But what we can say is, if you do study in regional Australia, and that can be, when I'm not talking about the desert or in the bush, it is places like Adelaide, it's like Darwin, in Canberra, in Perth. So these are main cities, though we call it regional, than Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. There are more opportunities. And why do I say more opportunities? Is that the states have different governments and they participate in the process of giving visas. So you could be sponsored. Many people are sponsored, and yes, you could have more opportunities if you do study in regional Australia.
Right. Thank you, Sanjay. Yeah, moving towards the second question. Will there be an interview with the university before enrollment? So when you say enrollment, not at the initial stage, normally they will have an interview at the GTE stage, which we call the financial, like the process, because normally when they sort of like check your GT or the financial documents, most like if you take like 100 universities, somewhere around like 50 universities, they will have this GTE interview where they will like sort of contact the applicant. They will like have just a casual chat with them just to check their like the knowledge when it comes to what they have applied, and like whether the applicant is aware about the opportunities, like in Australia when they are coming here to study. or the reasons for them to like study this particular provider or else this particular place. So they will have this casual chat with you. We can't really call that an interview, but more sort of like every university, every one of the universities, they do that, but not all the universities, because different universities, they will have a different GTE processes. So they will be like according to that, they will decide like whether they are having this particular interview with the applicant or not. So yeah, and do I get a refund if my student visa gets refused? Yes, you will, but make sure when you're getting an offer letter, always go to your offer letter, the details, the very last pages. Like I'm pretty sure none of the students, they go through the whole offer letter, but they just go ahead and sign it or accept it. But before like accepting an offer letter, please make sure that you go through all the details mentioned in there. What is the refund policy? Whether the university is deducting a certain amount like for the process or the work that they have done, or whether they are like refunding the entire like the 100% amount that you have paid to the university. So again, depending on the university, this process can be different. So but normally the standard process is, yes, they will refund the 100% amount that you have paid to the university, right? As a fresh graduate, are there any other options for me other than the 485 graduate visa? If so, what are the requirements, cost, and benefits of the other options when compared to the 485 visa? Sanji, would you like to answer that for me, please?
Yes, look, I will always encourage the main purpose is that you take the 485 because it is a low risk application, and that you take the 485 application, and then on that, as I said, apply for through your general skill migration point system, or if you have got work, a couple of years of work experience and been sponsored by an employer. So that's a guidance that we will give. All these visas have certain importance and priorities. So if you have the 485, you won't be applying for certain other visas because the 485 will be of more value. But you will apply for the other visas when your 485 is coming to an end. So that's the advice that we will always talk about when you apply for the 485. And there is a question, Charuka, that I want to answer. For how long will my student visa be valid? That depends on the course you're doing. So you need to undertake a course and complete it. And the course should be of 2 years if you are to get this 485 visa, because if it's a shorter course, you are not going to get the post-work stream visa. So generally, if the course is for 2 years, you might get for 2 years, another 3 months, giving you time to apply for the other visa.
Right. Thank you, Sanjay. Are there currently any restrictions on the number of hours student visa holders can work in a fortnight? The answer is, at this point of time, no. The students can work unlimited, but only up until 1st of July, because the hours will be capped again to 24 hours a week. So fortnightly, you can work up to 48 hours.
There's another question I will answer. The question is, while the main applicant is on a student visa, can the spouse apply for PR? Certainly. And that's happened many times, because you could have a spouse that came with you in the first place, or you got married and that person does have the requirements. Yes, certainly there are no restrictions, either through your general skill migration or through employer sponsorship. Your partner can apply for PR, and that means if you get the PR, the student visa gets cancelled. Obviously, a PR visa is a more valuable visa than a student visa, but you can continue your studies.
So yeah, there's another question. Can I change my selected program after I started studying in Australia? So that, of course, the answer for this particular question, of course, will depend on what you are currently studying. Because if you are studying a bachelor's, then you can change your program, but you have to complete the first semester or the first 6 months to be eligible to switch your provider or switch the course. Because otherwise you will have to request a release letter from the university. But if you are studying a master's, of course, there are certain restrictions now, like with the recent changes. So if you can let us know what's the current program that you are studying, so we can give you the exact answer for this question. Should I have work experience to get a student visa? Certainly not. But having work experience will be another advantage. Since you're studying since you're applying for a student visa, of course, it wouldn't have a huge weight if you have work experience or anything as such, but definitely you need to meet the minimum, the educational eligibility to apply for a student visa, but having work experience is not a mandatory thing.
Sharuka, there are some questions at the bottom of the and one is, if you study in an Australian university branch in another country, will you be eligible for a post-study work rights? So I will answer that question, no. So there are students who will study part of the studies and overseas. In Sri Lanka, we have ACBT and so many universities. So you'll study there for 1 year and minimum study for 2 years in Australia in order to qualify. Now, that doesn't mean if you want to study 2 years and then only come and study in Australia for 1 year, that's fine. But then you will not be entitled to the post-work stream visa. So a very important that. And Sharuka, you will answer that other question, followed the bachelor's degree in English.
Sure, Sanjay. So I have followed my degree in English medium without IELTS. Can I apply for master's? Right. So this is basically depending on the university, because there are certain universities who will actually offer you an IELTS or English waiver. But there are certain universities who are pretty strict when it comes to English requirement. So basically, we are partnered up with different universities who of course provide this IELTS waiver and so forth. But we always, as an educational agent, we always recommend for you to undertake this or meet this English requirement, because it's always good for your visa. So when you lodge your visa application with right or English, then that means you will sort of have a better how can I explain it, a better outcome, because you have ticked all the boxes. So that's the main reason why we always encourage people to undertake English, because you are coming to an English speaking country and you will have to do everything with this language. So it's always good for you to have that understanding on the basic the language requirements. So but yeah, the answer is you can, because there are certain universities who will actually offer this IELTS waiver if you have studied in English medium for 2 years or more. Is a post-study working visa guaranteed for every student? I would say yes, if you have completed or if you have met the right requirements. The minimum eligibility requirements to apply for the 485 is basically that you have to study in Australia 2 years or more. So that if you meet that particular criteria, and there are certain other English and other requirements where you have to meet those ones as well. If you meet those requirements or the eligibility criteria, you can apply for your, every student who completes their studies in Australia for 2 years or more, they can apply for their 485 or the post-study work visa. Can you apply for postgraduate studies before you graduate? Example, last semester of your undergraduate studies. No, because the reason is when you're applying for the 485, you definitely need to have your completion letter or the transcript or else the graduate certificate. So we need the academic documents if we are applying for the 485. So definitely you need to have completed your studies. before we apply for the 485. Hi, I'm already completing my bachelor's in early childhood education, but at the moment I'm working with the children with special needs. So I prefer to do my master's in special needs education. Is it possible to apply? Definitely yes. Since you're coming from a teaching background, we can always assist you to find the right provider or else the right program in special needs education, because you are your previous studies are in line with the program that you are planning to apply. So that's the answer for your question. Do I get a refund if my student is? I think we answered for that. Malisha, I'm 25 years old. Can I join the bachelor's degree? So the answer is yes, Malisha. But we have to check your profile. We have to see whether you have done any other courses earlier, such as certificates or diplomas or advanced diplomas, as well as whether you have any study gaps. So these things we have to look into. We have to look into your profile, and then only we can give you a certain answer. But we are more than happy to have a consultation with you either tomorrow or within this week, Malaysia. So please get in touch with us. While studying in Australia, is it possible to apply for a different visa? Example, if I obtain a permanent job offer. Sanji?
Yes, I'll answer the question. Yeah, you can, but very important, until such time you are granted that particular visa, you need to fulfill your obligations on the student visa. So let's say that you were offered a working visa, which normally takes about 3 months. You have to complete your you have to continue your studies, and until that visa is granted. Once that visa is granted, your obligations on the student visa will cease. But if you look at a permanent resident application sponsored by an employer, that could take up to 1 year. That means during that 1 year, you need to complete your studies. And if you don't, and they cancel the visa, that impacts your current application for your permanent residency. And Rishan's answer, I think Sharuka will answer that.
Yeah, so Rishan, how much time my partner can work when I'm applying for master's degree? So your partner can work unlimited, Rishan, but your work entitlements will be capped for 24 hours per week. Can I sell land, vehicle, and put it as my show money? Definitely, yes, you can do that. But you have to make sure when the transaction is taking place, let's say if you're selling your land or your vehicle tomorrow, then the funds have to be banked within the same day so that we can show it as a supporting document to show that this particular fund or this particular transaction had happened on this particular day, and that's how you got this show money in your bank account. So that is the answer for that question is, yeah, you can definitely show your sales of lands or vehicles or properties for your show money, and you really don't have to maintain it for a certain duration. You can just use it straight away, but you need to have the right supporting documents. While I'm studying in Australia, if I get a permanent job, can I switch my visa to a different one? I think we have answered that. How much can someone roughly earn per hour when working part-time? Yeah, so normally it is, if I'm not mistaken, the minimum wage is $25 per hour, but I definitely have to check. I might be wrong. But normally, when you're working part-time, of course, depending on the employers and everything, you will get paid in a different manner. So that is not something that we can answer exactly that you will get paid this X amount of money, because it actually varies depending on the employment. Is PT accepted by all the Australian universities for a master's degree? Yes and no, both, because there can be certain studies where when you have to study something like nursing or early childhood, they will prefer IELTS as their English exam. But this is something if you have preferred provider or a university in your mind, you can always come back to us so that we can check with that particular provider's requirements and give the exact answer for this question. For how long should I maintain the show money? Minimum 3 months, but it's always good if you can at least like have it for 6 months or more. Can I reapply for a student visa in Australia because I already have a visitor visa refusal or a travel visa refusal? So we have to check the refusal letter and we have to see like what was the reason for the refusal. And then definitely, as we discussed today, like getting a visa refusal does not mean that you can't really apply for any other visas in Australia. But we definitely have to look into the facts and see why your previous visa application was refused. Based on that, we can always advise you how to like come up with a strong GTE and like explain the department what was the reason for the visa refusal and why you need this next visa for your like studies in Australia. So yeah, you can always organize a consultation with us so that we can discuss in detail regarding the visa refusal and we can give you the right advice. I think we've come to an end with our questions. Hope we have covered all the questions. Give me a couple of minutes. I'm just trying to go through the questions and see whether we have covered everything. Right. So I believe we have covered all the questions, Sanji, and yeah, so we can wrap today's session up.
Yes, once again, just to add, I think, thank you, Charka, you had completely covered all the areas as a student would know. And but should you come and consult us, this is the service that the relationship managers will go through with you step by step and talk to you. And sometimes even into your parents to guide you through this whole process. And we're always there to assist you and guide you. And also, most importantly, thing that I talked about is about because we are migration agents and not only education agents. That the difference being that all these questions that today the participants asked us in order to find out about their options after they study. Yeah, and so one of the main important things, as I always say, complete your studies. The opportunities are unlimited. And Charuka, we will also let the participants know that they can contact us at our Colombo office, and generally it could be from inquiries@sanjicaldera.com, and then follow us on Facebook or send a email or a text on Facebook or otherwise, and there are plenty of ways that you could contact us.
Yeah, before wrapping up, Sanjay, I'd like to share my email address as well for the participants here. So if you can just note it down, it's Charuka, my first name, CHARUKA @sanjicaldera.com. So you can if you have any inquiries related to your student visa, you can always send me or shoot me an email. I'll be more than happy to assist you with your inquiry. So yeah, do let us know and get in touch with us for your student visas. And if you have any other visas that you'd like to apply through us, we're more than happy to assist you.
Right. Once again, thank you very, very much for your participation, and I hope you have a pleasant evening.
Thank you.